Singapore is warning of a potential spike in dengue cases as a different strain takes hold in several large and persistent clusters. Now, Aedes mosquito populations are also up in many areas. The National Environment Agency says that there are currently 48 active dengue clusters. Now, more than 6,200 cases have already been logged since the start of the year.
Singapore's dengue case count could get worse before it gets better. The National Environment Agency is warning of a potential surge as another dengue serotype becomes more widespread. NEA reports that in July, the dengue-1 strain made up 55% of total dengue cases. That's nearly triple the proportion of the previously dominant strain, dengue-3. Of particular concern are the Science Park Drive cluster with 29 cases and the Lentor Loop cluster with 24 cases. Some residents here are worried.
I scared. Then what to do?
Well, because now the construction also doing here, I think after they stop it will be lesser.
Particularly at risk are the sick and the elderly. Tai Hwa Kwan Hospital nearby says they are already conducting routine checks and will step up measures if the situation arises. To tackle cases here, grassroots leaders in Yio Chu Kang plan to share anti-dengue flyers, work closely with NEA on fogging the area, and also get residents to play their part.
This includes things like, for instance, preventing stagnant water from being there in their house, to remove stagnant water, and also to ensure that they take appropriate measures such as, when you're going out, please apply mosquito repellent. When they go out, also to wear long sleeve clothes, avoid dark places, etc. like that. And also to report incidents when they feel that there are stagnant waters in the environment to the appropriate authorities.
Common symptoms of dengue include high fever, body aches and headaches. One doctor tells CNA he's particularly concerned about patients who have gotten dengue before.
Patients that has previously been infected with one strain of virus, getting reinfected with another strain of virus, different serotype. The reason is because they are at higher risk of dengue shock syndrome, meaning they develop low blood pressure and end organ complications from the dengue infection.
NEA says the increase of a previously less prevalent dengue virus serotype is of concern, as this has historically been associated with a surge in dengue cases months later. But experts stress that the dengue-1 serotype is not new.
When you have a switch in a type of dengue, then the worry, of course, is that the population immunity to this dengue-1 isn't as high as, say, against dengue-3, which has been circulating in Singapore, at least for the past 3 years. But having said that, dengue-1 is not uncommon in Singapore. It actually has been around, at least in the past 20 years. It's caused a couple of outbreaks, I think one in 2005 and another one in 2013, right? So our immunity to dengue-1 is not that low.
NEA also urges the public to take action, like emptying flower pot plates and overturning pails. Plus, keep roof gutters clear and place mosquito control insecticide inside.
And for a bigger bite into this topic, we're joined by Professor Tiki Pang from the Yong Loo School of Medicine at NUS. He's speaking from Geneva in Switzerland. Professor, we just heard one doctor say that there should not be so much concern because it's not that dengue-1 is that uncommon. But meanwhile, we have had the NEA say the increase on previously less prevalent dengue virus serotype. Now, that is a matter of concern. How would you view how much we should be concerned about the resurgence of the dengue-1 strain?
Of course, we should be concerned, but I think what I would like to point out is that these are sort of quite normal cycles of change, which happen periodically. As Prof. Wee already mentioned, in 2014, it was dengue-1, and then for 5 years, 2015 to 2020, it was dengue-2. And then dengue-3 took over sometime in 2020, and until June of this year, it was then replaced by dengue-1, which sort of came back and caused the recent surge of cases that we are seeing. So as he also mentioned, you do expect a surge in dengue cases when you have a change in the type of serotypes that's circulating. So I believe there's no increased risk because in terms of the disease, because of the change in serotype, but because fewer people are immune to dengue 1 because it hasn't been around for nearly 10 years. It could be that more people get infected because there are fewer people who are immune to the dengue 1 virus.
So, Professor Pang, you've mentioned there that it is cyclical in nature and that a low sort of exposure to dengue 1 might make people less sort of resistant against it. Give us some context as to how these serotypes actually emerge and dominate as well.
Well, I think it's a little bit related to the evolution of the virus, like any living organism. When it's been circulating for some time, like dengue 2 for nearly 5-6 years, it basically is running out of susceptible hosts to infect. Okay, so because of the evolutionary pressure, it is then evolutionarily, I guess, preferable for the virus to then change to introduce another serotype where it can find more hosts to infect and thereby multiply itself. So I think it's related to a natural cycle of evolution.
All right, and on to essentially trying to suppress this. Professor, we've got a Project Wolbachia, that's the release of male Wolbachia Aedes mosquitoes to suppress the population of mosquitoes. But if we look at figures, so NEA says there are currently 48 active dengue clusters and more than 6,200 cases since the start of this year. Given what you know about mosquitoes, their reproduction, is this number acceptable given the Wolbachia project we have right now? How would you rate its success?
Okay, I think in terms of its success, I do not think this is an indication of a problem with the Wolbachia approach. I think from July of last year, about 30% of all HDB blocks in 13 sites around Singapore have been covered by the release of these male Wolbachia Aedes mosquitoes. And where it has been released, the results are very impressive. Like in Tampines and Yishun, for example, there was up to 98% reduction of the mosquito population, and importantly, up to 88% reduction in the dengue cases in these areas of study within at least a year of the release. Now, while 30% coverage is impressive, clearly it doesn't cover the whole island. So moving forward, there are challenges, okay? And this is in terms of scaling up the project to extend it to the whole of Singapore. The high cost of doing so, thus raising issues of sustainability. And finally, the potential longer-term negative ecological impact of the release of these mosquitoes on other life forms in the ecosystem. So in conclusion, the results are very impressive, but there are some future challenges that I just mentioned.
Professor Pang, you've been an advocate of Dengvaxia, the dengue vaccine, being administered to older individuals in Singapore. There is a narrower band, an age group for which it is suitable, and not everyone is suitable for it, in fact. Why isn't it actually making a bigger difference in suppressing the high case numbers that we're seeing?
Okay, let me just, let's say, update you. The Dengvaxia issue has been a bit controversial, and I think there is probably less interest in that vaccine. However, there is a new vaccine, which some people say is almost ready, but actually it is ready. There is a new and safe, effective vaccine, which has already just been approved in Indonesia, Thailand, Brazil, Argentina, and European Union countries, but not as yet approved in Singapore. So, yes, there is definitely a need to have such a vaccine against dengue to complement existing measures. such as controlling the mosquitoes. Wolbachia, good example. Ensuring environmental cleanliness in homes, in public places, in construction sites, and importantly, raising awareness and educating the population. Now, I was just listening to one of the people you interviewed. In fact, construction sites are not the major problem. They represent only about 1% of mosquito breeding sites. It's the large majority are homes and also public places.
All right, Professor, and a final point, and since you mentioned education, you are the perfect person to help us clear up the myths and misconceptions that circulate about dengue. For example, and I raise this, can papaya leaf juice actually treat dengue? Does wearing dark clothing attract mosquitoes? So just two questions to end this on.
Okay, on this question of myths, I think there are two things I want to mention. It is not a myth that mosquitoes are attached to black and dark colors. That's true, okay? So wear light colors, white, beige, green, to minimize the risk of getting bitten. Second point, it is a myth that mozzies cannot fly higher than 10 meters. And therefore, it's a threat only to those living in landed homes or low floors. You know, mosquitoes, okay, they prefer to fly at heights less than 10 meters. But the tiger mosquito has been found breeding in trees 40 feet above the ground. And in Singapore, they have been found in apartments 21 stories above the ground, okay? So, you know, in HDBs, mosquitoes can go up in the lifts. They can go up through the garbage chutes, through the stairwells, up the elevator shafts, etc. Okay, so that is a myth that it cannot be found higher than 10 meters. Instead of, in terms of your question of citronella oil, I think there are some pretty good evidence that some of these oils work. Citronella is probably not as effective as some other oils, and I think cinnamon oil is one example. Garlic oil is another, more effective probably than citronella. And it includes also the citronella leaves and plants.
All right, thank you very much for your insights and for setting the record straight for us, Prof. Pang. That was Professor Tiki Pang there from the Yong Loo Lin School of Medicine at NUS, speaking to us from Geneva.